I figured I'd just drop some knowledge because there's just been something that's been pressing on me forever, for quite some time. Let me just be more clear. And that is the way that pre-occupational therapy students are approaching the student loans that they will be taking out as occupational therapy students, and just the fact that they don't really have someone to really talk to in terms of how to deal with the debt that will be incurred during school. A lot of us, especially that we are in our 20s and 30s, that generation, we are the most educated generation in American history. Honestly, just been no other generation that has flooded into the university settings the way that we have. So what does that mean? It means that a lot of us that are going into college are first generation student. I myself was one of them. I did not really have the guidance to have like a clear path as to how to make this investment really either worth it, because from the time that I was little, I was being told that go to college, get a degree. Maybe you have to take out some loans, that's okay because you're going to be able to pay it off. But as you can see, this whole thing has just become a crisis. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it means for you guys as pre-occupational therapy students and the way that you can think about it as you move on into your careers and whatnot. I think the first thing that you have to understand is that it's a very taboo subject. I myself had to take out student loans, and I'm pretty sure you guys have had to. I'm trying to come up with just more strategic ways to pay down those loans. And some of you may have already heard me talk about this maybe in a past live or something, or maybe on a phone call that we may have had or something like that, but that I'm personally using the snowball effect by Dave Ramsey. I posted yesterday a really crazy video of how there's someone out there with $1 million. This is not a joke. This is an extreme case, obviously, but this is a true person, a real live person with $1 million in student loan debt. This is someone in the healthcare field, and what I've come to learn is that the main reason why we're seeing, and you have to understand this as a pre-occupational therapy student, just as a student in general, is that the main reason why we're seeing these tuition rates go up is because everybody right now has access to college because of the loans that we are able to receive. It's just basic law of supply, the law of supply and demand. If we have low supply, but the demand is high and it's scarce, that means that it's limited to that certain few people and not everybody is getting access to it. But now with everybody just having access and having all these infinite amounts of loans just being given to them, everybody has access to a college education if you really just want it and can have the means to get through school. And the financial aid and the loans really are there through banks, through the federally funded subsidized loans that are out there, unsubsidized loans that are out there as well. That is just creating the opportunity for universities to basically charge whatever it is that we want, because there's such a high demand and it doesn't matter what it is. Everybody wants it and they can charge for it because everybody does want it. The second that we see that in terms of a political standpoint and Congress and all this stuff from a political standpoint, that loans are not going to be given out like candy, and you're going to start seeing that students are going to stop going to these universities all of a sudden because they can't afford it. Well, now the universities are going to get desperate for applicants. So what does that mean? They're going to get desperate, the tuition prices are going to go down. And that's always been the problem with things, and more particularly in healthcare, because it's seen as a prestigious type of profession. You know, everybody wants to kind of be like a doctor, go be a lawyer. Like those tend to be like the top two, right? But if you come to think about it, those two professions are actually like among the most expensive ones to go into. And that's because the demand into these programs are just getting really, really, really high. So I just want you to know that as the demand for occupational therapy programs like increases, and that also is just going to mean too that so are the tuition prices. So you guys just really need to just understand that it's a basic law of supply and demand. And if you want to actually, at least from a civil standpoint, take the opportunity to do something about it, Dave Ramsey did suggest, you know, contacting your Congress and your state office and telling them how ridiculous it is that they're handing out loans like hotcakes, because it's leading to the national debt that we have. And then that is what it's going to do, is basically affect us in the long run, because us, the taxpayers, are going to have to foot the bill, essentially. So I'll share a little bit about how I chose the schools that I chose. I was looking at many schools, including out of state. I was the type of person that had no appreciation for my hometown here in Miami, Florida. I wanted to leave Miami, Florida very badly, and just wanted to experience something new. And I thought that by doing so, it'd be one of the better things that I can do in terms of my personal growth and whatnot, right? So I was looking at some out-of-state schools. Then I saw the prices and I was like, that's ridiculous. There's no way I'm going to invest 120 plus 150, possibly even $200,000 in an occupational therapy education. There's no way. Out-of-state colleges, for me personally, were discarded. Like, that's not an option for me. I'm not willing to put that on the table. Then it narrowed down to the South Florida schools that were here. There are quite a few of them, actually. But the one that I was going to apply to 3 of them, to Barry University, to Florida International University, my alma mater, and to Nova Southeastern. Now, I ended up applying only to Florida International University because when I looked at the prices for Nova Southeastern, when I looked at the prices for Barry and the other state schools, that number one, it would require me to maybe even move like an hour and a half north, and I wasn't willing to do that commute, which would be an additional expense. And Florida International University was literally around the corner from me, so I thought that it was the best choice for me, and I did not waste my time nor my money applying to Nova, because even if I got accepted there, like, I wouldn't be happy, because that would mean that I'm investing $150,000 in an education. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with you guys putting that investment or going to Nova if you guys are applying to that. I'm just saying how it was for me personally. You know, my perspective, what was going on in Jessica's head. So I did not want to foot that bill. I did not think that, you know, as much as I love occupational therapy, I did not think that it was worth 150 plus in loans for me to do this. For me, it was, I'm going to go to Florida International University, or I'm going to have to try to figure something else with my life. And that was just the perspective that I had. I know that many of you are trying to apply to all these different programs just in hopes of trying to get in somewhere, but not necessarily really taking into consideration what it's going to mean for your lives. And what I've noticed that has helped a lot of OTs that are top pay, like I'm talking about the top paid OTs, is that they have taken the entrepreneurial route. And I'm just being very dead honest. If you are going to be in this profession, I highly recommend that you start getting yourself a little bit more into a business mindset if you want to make this education worth it for you, because the prices are just increasing. And you have to remember that the average OT is only making, starting, about $60,000 a year. But people are graduating with typically about $150,000 in debt. Some people just kind of have the perspective of, well, I'm just going to let this loan sit there. It gets paid off when it gets paid off. I posted about yesterday that has $1 million in student debt as an extreme case again. He obviously is never going to pay that off. Even as an orthodontist, the guy that took out those loans is an orthodontist. He went to the most expensive orthodontal school in the whole United States, and which ended up him getting all the loans that he did. But it just comes to show that you need to be very wise about the schools that you're choosing when it comes to price, because you don't want to just go to the most prestigious program or the most expensive program in hopes that you're going to get paid more, because that's not necessarily going to be the case. I go to Florida International University, and somebody that graduates from Nova Southeastern, I paid less for. That's just a fact. It does just cost less. I make the same amount as a Nova Southeastern graduate. It just comes down to that. So that was one thing that I personally did. The reason why I say that entrepreneurship has helped a lot of them is because it's what allows them to make the money that they want. When you're either opening your own clinic or you are basically taking things in a way that will allow you to create growth for yourself, that's when you're going to see the income potential increase, because the jobs are capped. You know, if you go work at a hospital, the salaries are capped. Like, this is what they pay the OTs, and that's what they pay the OTs, and you have room for growth, but there's only so much that you're going to grow. Like, the starting salary is maybe $60,000, and then you can grow maybe up to $75,000 as an example, but you're never going to necessarily maybe at that particular hospital be making $125,000 a year, more than likely. The OTs that make the 125 plus or 250 a year or whatever, that are some of the top paying OTs in this country, those are the ones that have taken it upon themselves to do something big for the profession. They're like they've gone the entrepreneur route, and they have opened other clinics, have created that growth for themselves. And it's one of the reasons too why I created this group. Like, I want to basically encourage you all to start thinking about ways that you can make this investment worth it, because it's not an easy decision. Like, you can't just necessarily be like, well, it just seems like such a fun profession and you play with kids all day. It has to be worth it. You need to really think about how it is that you're going to pay this stuff off, and whether that means possibly, like I said in the post yesterday, maybe it means living at home with your parents, if that's a possibility for you. I understand that that's not a possibility for everyone. Maybe it means to disregard the out-of-state schools, such as I did, but you really need to be realistic and have a real game plan as to how it is that you're going to tackle this stuff. That's what the OTs these days have been doing, that are the top paying in this profession. They have created the success themselves. They have not stayed in a capped job that will not allow them to grow. They are looking for jobs that are going to allow them to have maybe part ownership of the clinic and expand, maybe by opening a second clinic. They're opening a clinic themselves. They're seeing private patients on their own and charging what they deem is worth their time and worth. And you need to know your worth as an OT and recognize that you did go to school for a reason, and you do have a certain set of skills that can help people, and you need to be able to articulate as to why those skills are needed. And it comes down to even whether you're seeing private pay patients or whether you're seeing the patients that are coming through insurance based, such as Blue Cross Blue Shield or Medicare or whatever. Like, because you need to be able to articulate some of this stuff, and that's another skill that these OTs are learning, is how to show that those services need to be paid for. I really just want you guys to consider the snowball effect when it comes down to paying loans, and just really being practical and not being swayed. This program is just maybe a little bit more prestigious than that one, because the one that's going to have to foot the bill is going to be you and society maybe later on, if you don't end up paying it, because it's just, you got into so much debt. You have to maybe go into the debt forgiveness. Like, that has to come from somewhere. You know what I mean? And we're already in an issue in a society when it comes to the debt, and we don't need to add to it. So if you're not sure about that this is the right profession for you, then please don't apply, because we don't need you getting into $150+ in debt and then think like, what the heck did I get myself into, and drop out a year later. We don't need you applying if you just think that you're going to be making it big, because I'm being very honest with you. The salaries are capped. There's potential for growth if you go do certain things, but it is what it is.